let's be honest, like if you don't take care of your mental health, you can't be dedicated to excellence. Like so often it gets like, that's like the last thing that gets dealt with. Like everybody else wants to talk about the actions and this and that, and it's like, hey, can we talk about our mental well-being? Like, can we talk about what it looks like to, if you want to be excellent, if you want to be a badass entrepreneur that's killing it in everything you do, like you got to have your mind right. If you don't, man, it's just not going to work.
I'm really excited about this episode, and I don't believe there is a better time for this episode to drop in today's world right now with the upcoming inauguration. We have the coronavirus, we've got the lockdowns, and we've got a lot of people at really high points. We've got a lot of people at really low points. And I believe that the message inside this podcast is going to help a couple people, and that's all that we hope for today. If you receive anything from Nick's message today in the podcast, please make sure to screenshot the podcast, tag Nick, tag us on Instagram so we can share it about, one, so Nick knows that his words are getting out there and helping people, two, so that we can connect you on a different level. You are what drives us. We're making this for you. We're not monetizing it. We're not doing anything. So what I'd like to do now is just get right into the episode. This is full of incredible value, and I just want to thank Nick again for the amazing opportunity to have him on the podcast and the information that he has shared.
We are back in the building with another episode of the Dedication to Excellence podcast. I'm your host, Eugene Taman-Post, alongside my co-host and the operational Wizard of Oz, Dustin Reyna. What's up with you, bruh?
Hey, how's it going? It's going good. Just got the baby down, and I'm ready to get into this with Nick and, of course, you. Let's do this.
Your baby's so cute, bro. We need to get her back on an episode, man. She learned to talk yet? Can she do podcasts yet?
It's coming.
Perfect. Well, she could take her time. Let's let her say like mommy and daddy first, then podcast right after.
Yeah.
So yeah, for those of you listening for the first time, the purpose of this podcast is not just inspire and motivate, but to give real actionable steps and operational strategies from high achievers who have actually done the things we'll be discussing with them. Because once you're excited, folks, guess what? You actually got to take action and go do some shit. So today's guest is a firefighter and paramedic who was named Mr. November in the most recent, not the most recent issue, an issue from a year ago of Colorado Firefighter magazine. So he's the reigning Mr. November. We have a centerfold in the building here, folks. As a firefighter for the Westminster Fire Department in Colorado, on top of that, he is the host of the Building Grit podcast and also runs a mobile IV business. Nick Wingo, thank you for risking your life to save others. Welcome to the Dedication to Excellence podcast.
Okay. Man, thank you guys. I'm so grateful that you guys brought me on the podcast. It's always such a great opportunity to get to talk to other people on other podcasts and really just, talk about the grind of life and, and just remind people like, hey, you're not alone in what you're doing. And we're all working towards excellence. And there's all kinds of actionable steps that you can take to get to where you want to go, but you got to do it. You got to listen to the podcast. You got to go out and get after whatever it is that you want. So super stoked to be on the podcast with you guys this evening.
We're super excited to have you, brother. Especially because little known fact about me, I at one point thought I wanted to be a firefighter. And that's actually the last thing I attempted before deciding school wasn't for me and dropping out. But I wanted to do it for one reason and one reason only. And that was so I could tell girls that I was a firefighter. So yeah, it wasn't exactly the most thought through why. And I didn't finish the journey once I found out that you actually had to learn things in EMT and paramedic class, because apparently you can't just copy your way through. At some point, you'd have to save someone's life and, actually know what you were doing. So needless to say, I never finished that journey. But my first question to you, Nick, is what was your upbringing like and what made you decide to go the route of being a firefighter and paramedic?
Yeah, man. So, actually it's funny because when I was 18, graduated from high school, my mom had brought me a little booklet I made in kindergarten, and it was, what do you want to be when you grow up? And it was, I wanted to be a firefighter. So from when I was in kindergarten. And honestly, I didn't even remember that until she had brought that to me. But up to that point, I went through high school and I was going to join the military. And when I went to join the military, I actually got permanently disqualified for my asthma because I had really bad asthma. And so I couldn't join. So I was like, fuck, what am I going to do? Like, where am I going to go now? What is life got for me? And funny enough, my mom was like, hey, you should go try out this fire academy at a community college. And I was like, well, I at that point, my football career kind of had failed me. I didn't get any scholarships for football, and I didn't want to spend $20,000 on a year for, a couple of years for school when I had no clue what I wanted to do. So I said, you know what, screw it. I'll give it a shot. I'll try it out. And I did. And it was like just one thing after another started to happen for me. And I got through the fire academy and I went to EMT school and became a basic. And then I got hired up in the mountains as a resident firefighter. And so that was kind of like my college days. So a lot of people go to college and get their time away from their parents. That's kind of like their first go. Well, mine was like on steroids because I'm a firefighter, right? So, it's all about the paydays and the 4 days and the chicks. And, like now you have this job where you're making some money and like the women love you. The men want to be you. That's at least what you think. Like, that's what you think when you're 18 years old.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. Well, it's not like that.
So let's go into some of that reality. What's it really like? What's the behind the glitz and glamour and the Mr. Novembers here? What is it really like to be a firefighter?
Yeah, man. So like, as you guys can see, if you're watching the video, you can see I have this big beard right now. And it's because I'm on leave right now. And the reason I'm on leave is because I've seen some fucked up shit. Like, the reality is that when you step into this, when I was 18 years old, I had no clue what I was getting myself into. When young men go to war, they see war for a year, let's be honest, like a deployment, it's about a year usually, or 2 years tops. They may go back 2 or 3 times in their career in the military. So they have 2 or 3 years where they have these horrific incidents that happen, right? They lose a battle buddy. They see all kinds of death. Well, let me just tell you right now, I've been in the fire service for 18 years. And for 18 years, I've seen death. I've lost 5 comrades, 1 to a line of duty death, 2 to suicide, 1 to cancer, 1 to a freak accident. The amount of dead kids I've held, the amount of hands that I've held while they've taken their last breath. 18 years of it adds up quickly. And you don't know that that's what you're getting yourself into. You don't realize it. In the fire service, it's starting to get better, but I started when mental health was just like, it was like, suck it up, Sally. Like, I'm sorry that you feel that, that you had a rough day. But the reality is you gotta move through it. You gotta have grit. You gotta build, you gotta just get through it. Like, you just gotta grit through it and do you and suck it up and shove it down. Guess what? I've been shoving that shit down for 18 years. And it added up. And so here I stand, I'm taking a break because I needed a break from it.
How long ago did you go on this leave? How long you been?
I've been on leave for about 45 days, but it's this really weird space to be in because you think that you're fine until you're not fine. And then you go and you start to really take a deep breath and reflect back on what my careers looked like. And, I've had an abnormally weird career. Like, it's not normal to lose 5 comrades, it's just not a normal thing. But the last 45 days, I was blessed because I got to have that time with my dad before my dad died. So my dad just recently passed away. And so when he died, I was the guy that shoved all my emotion down. Was
it expected, if you don't mind me asking?
It was not. It was completely unexpected. And so I spent all this time shoving my shit way down and stuffing it. And then my dad died. And man, I cried for like 7 days straight. And it wasn't only my dad, it was all the emotion that I had stored up. And it just all came out at once. It was like emotion vomit. It's the most sorrow I've ever felt in my life. And I'm convinced, like, reflecting back now that I'm kind of starting to get on the other side of it and looking back, is because I spent so much time just shoving shit down and not mourning things and not dealing with it and not identifying it. And so the reality is that is what the life of a paramedic or a firefighter looks like. Is there is like some really heavy shit that you're going to have to deal with. And nobody tells you about that when you say, like, you just get just what you said. Oh man, all the chicks are going to love me. Right. Like, I'm going to get a date. You know what I mean? I'm going to be doing this job where I'm going to be saving lives. And, I'm gonna be getting the chicks, and it's gonna be this awesome, great deal. And and don't get me wrong, like I've saved a lot of people's lives for sure. Like there's a lot of people that I can say I saved their lives. Sometimes the bad, it's so bad, it like drowns out the good, if that makes sense.
No, totally. So this most recent leave, what was it that is this the first time you've taken a leave like this after 18 years?
Yeah, this is the first time I've been on a leave like this.
And what was it that was the breaking point where you said, I just need to chill out for a second?
I was having nightmares, and I was not able to sleep. And I had said something like, I was like, man, like I can't right now. Like I just need to take a deep breath. And then it was kind of like, hey, I think you should get some help. And I'm like, maybe I should get some help, because I am having nightmares. I am not sleeping, and so right now, like I'm in the middle of working through it. Like that's what my life is right now. My life is working through my heavy stuff.
I have a cool question. So going through stuff like that, have you gone through any form of like therapy or counseling or anything that's actually helped? Because I know that I've been through a fair share of traumatic experiences and stuff as well, and I've had to go through some of those. And sometimes it's like beating your head against a wall. You're kind of repeating yourself, and some actually really help. Have you found anything that has actually really helped you?
Not yet.
One recommendation would be EMDR.
Well, and that's where that's in the direction that we're headed. I am with a counselor that's going to be doing EMDR for me. We just have to get through a couple more sessions before we go into the actual EMDR portion of it. So
what is EMDR? For those who don't know, because I'm one of those.
Dustin,
it's like cognitive left brain, right brain. So you kind of use light therapy, sound therapy to use certain emotional triggers to remove certain memories and kind of almost nullify their kind of experience a little bit. But it's pretty good. Yeah, it's really nice.
My understanding from people that because I know a lot of guys have gone through it. The way it's been best described to me is it takes an event that you have. So you have this event, and instead of this event being like this trigger to you, now it's like you see the event and you're like, oh, okay, that happened, but it doesn't bother you anymore.
Yeah, got it. So like you're directly addressing the triggers to your anxiety or whatever the negative result is.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
I'm still in my process on that one too. So I don't have the full experience on that one. My wife mostly was. We were involved in a freeway accident with a pedestrian that ended up in a fatality, and she needed it a lot more than myself because I compartmentalize like you as well. But yeah, no, it's very good therapy. So any of our listeners, that's my recommendation.
I feel like this is a very timely conversation, especially with just the state of the world. Mental issues, anxiety, stress are at an all-time high with the macro conditions going on. So I didn't expect this to be an episode about mental health, but hey, let's run with it because this is, I think, what the people need. But
let's be honest. Like if
Sure.
you don't take care of your mental health, you can't be dedicated to excellence. Like so often it gets like, that's like the last thing that gets dealt with. Like everybody else wants to talk about the actions and this and that. And it's like, hey, can we talk about our mental well-being? Like, can we talk about what it looks like to, if you want to be excellent, if you want to be, a badass entrepreneur that's killing it in everything you do, like you got to have your mind right. If you don't, man, it's just not going to work.
1,000%. But you were still able to achieve a level of success over the last 18 years before you really sat down and directly addressed your mental condition. So in hindsight, what are some of the things you wish you would have done differently? What are some of the things that you thought were doing right that maybe you're like, shit, that kind of probably just pushed me back even further? Like, what is your post-game analysis of the last 18 years of the way you addressed your mental health as opposed to how you're addressing it now?
You know what the biggest thing is that it's okay to not be okay. Because so often we think, and it's just like prime example, Facebook, Instagram, like everybody wants to look at that shit and be like, oh, this person's that, and they're this. And the reality is, like, if you really saw that person outside of their Instagram or their Facebook, those people who look great and they act great and they have this big front, I guarantee you they've got some shit going on that they're not telling you, that you're not seeing. That's, you know, the reality of who they are versus the surface level of who they are is very different. And, you know, throughout my career, I like I said, I just shoved stuff down. And what I should have done is I should have mourned. I should have been not okay. And I should have said, like, hey, it's not cool that I just held a dead kid, right? Like, that was not a fun experience. And I should have identified it and said, okay, here's this thing, right? It's happened to me. How do I move through it? Right. And I should have got counseling at that time, because now here I am in this state of like, man, all of it at once is so overwhelming. Like, you know, that's where I am right now, is I'm just trying to work through that overwhelming feeling of like all these things. Like, I'll be driving and stuff just pops up in my head. It's like, geez, man, like I can't drive through the city of Westminster without being like, oh, this here and this here and this here.
Floodgates are open.
Yeah, man, it's a really weird, and like I said, like right now being in it, and really starting to get counseling, and really, I'm like, man, shit, I wish I would have done that from when I was a young kid. Like, I wish I would have known that was a thing. I wish I would have known that this would be an issue, you know, because I would have done things differently for sure.
Like not chosen this career path, like you were saying when we first.
Yeah, I mean, you know, obviously, like I'm in it now, but like we really should be having these conversations with people. Like, you know, we teach all these things for the fire service, and mental health is something that is just really starting to come in, and I think that, man, you should just really know what you're getting yourself into.
If I may dig a little, so if I may kind of just, this is kind of on a somber tone right now, our conversation, but I think this is important, because what's powerful when you have these types of conversations and then you overcome these sort of things, it provides an example to others that, hey, look, I know things can be bad, but you can overcome adversity even to the nth degree. Like, I don't know how it gets any worse than, you know, holding a dead kid. So with that, can you walk us through just, I mean, you know, in as much detail as you're comfortable sharing, but maybe one of like the craziest thing that you've gone through in your career that you've overcome, and then we'll take it on a positive note, because then I want to hear about some of the lives you saved and some of the value that you've obviously brought to the community, and you know, the highlights, the positive things, but maybe one step in the negative direction, and then we'll uplift it right after.
Yeah, you know, it's like I can't get into super detail just because HIPAA and you know, so there's Privacy Act stuff. Sure. But what I can tell you is one of the worst things that I ever had to do was there was an individual that was executed, we'll just say. And I had to hold that individual's hand while that individual took their last two breaths. And there was nothing that I could do. There was nothing that I could do. There was nothing that I could perform that was going to save this person's life because they were gone. And it was a very, very gory scene. There was a lot of blood. There was a lot of emotion. There was a lot of energy. And it was just, you know, it was very sobering. And when somebody is killed by another individual, it's a very different feeling than somebody who was hit by a car or so being somewhere where someone has been murdered is a very difficult energy to feel, if that makes sense.
So yeah, so you can actually feel the difference in the environment.
Yeah, you can feel the energy. You can just feel the desperation, you know, you can feel all those when you've done this so many times, the energy of the call of whatever's going on, you start to feel those things a lot more. You're more hyper aware of your surroundings. You know, it's kind of like you step into something and it's almost like things go into slow motion as you gather the entire scene and look around.
How long into your career was this particular incident?
This was actually just a few years ago.
Okay.
So it's fairly recent still. This last COVID has been bad. Like for the mental health game, like the amount of suicide that we've seen in the field. Oh my gosh, it's been nuts. It's been crazy. Yeah. It's been insane.
That's one of the things that pisses me off about this whole pandemic, man. It's the side effects of the pandemic, COVID, you tell me from a medical professional standpoint. I mean, am I far off by saying the side effects of the disease have been worse than the disease itself? Is that?
Yeah. So, if you're listening to this podcast, I want you to know that my dad officially died of COVID. Okay. And so if anybody has the right to have an opinion on this, I do. I'm telling you, in my opinion, the mental health, the things that are going to happen to our nation because of COVID, because of the shutdowns, because of not the disease itself, the stuff that's happening is by far worse than the disease itself. I don't care if you disagree with me. That's awesome. You can disagree with me. I don't really care. It's my opinion on the matter. And I'm not talking to you guys. I'm just saying, if you're listening to me and you're getting pissed because this is what I'm saying, like, it's fine. You can be mad and I can have my opinion and you can have your opinion and we can disagree. And that's okay.
The American way.
And that's okay. It's the American way. Exactly. But you are amongst friends, I believe, in that opinion. So I think we found our audio clip for this episode. One of our audio clips for this episode. So back to this particular incident that was particularly gruesome for you. And you've been doing this for a while at this point. How do you process that in the moment? I mean, at this point, had it just kind of become routine to you, or?
Yeah. So, what I would do is I would just, I just get focused on what can I do medically? Mm-hmm. So I take out the emotion. So what I would do, this may not, I'm still going through counseling, right? So I'm still working through all this stuff. This is what I was doing. I'm trying to figure that out right now. I'm currently in counseling to figure that out. Mm-hmm. But what I was doing is I was separating myself emotionally. So no emotion whatsoever to the call. It was looked at basically scientifically. Like, okay, can this person survive? Yes or no? Mm-hmm. Right? No. Then what can I do? Nothing. What am I going to do? I'm going to hold their hand until they die, and I'm going to let them die. And you have to, when you think about that, when you step back and think about that, it's kind of fucked up, man. Mm-hmm. That's fucked up that's a decision you have to make. But that's just the way it had to be, right? That's the way it was, like I said, I don't know if that's the right way to deal with it, but that's what I did.
Got it. That's some heavy stuff, bro. Let's transition then. Let's talk about some of the more positive things that have happened over your career. Let's talk about where you saved somebody's life, and I'm sure the family still love you for it and send you a Christmas card.
Yeah, for sure, man. We had this one time there was this older individual that was in a school helping out a grandchild and actually went into full cardiac arrest. And we went in there and we did terrible. We did terrible, in my opinion. We couldn't get an IV. We couldn't start a bone drill. And we saved that person's life. By the time we got to the hospital, that person was talking to me and they're like, my chest hurts. I'm like, well, that's because you just got 245 pounds of gorilla on you. But yeah. So my partner, he's 6'8" and 260. So we're the dynamic duo. I'm 5'10". Right now I'm 230. And he's 6'8" or 6. I don't know. He'll get pissed at me if he listens to this and I'm wrong because he's like, I'm 6, whatever he says every time. Yeah. He's a big dude. He's a big dude. So that was cool. That was the first time that I had went in and done terrible, in my opinion, with my care. We just couldn't get anything to work, and we saved the person's life. And I was like, what?
Was it mechanical error? Was it human error? A little bit of both?
There's just sometimes, man, where just things don't work out your way. So it's I wouldn't say it's mechanical error. It's always human error, in my opinion. Right. Mm-hmm. But there's just some things that just make things very difficult. For example, if you got bilateral knee replacements, I can't do a bone drill into your knee. And that's if I can't start an IV on you because you have terrible veins, and I can't do it in your knee because you have knee replacements. That's just a shitty day.
It's a shitty day at the office.
Damn, man. What am I supposed to do? But it happens.
Yeah.
And he was saved. At the end of the day, you saved his life.
Yep, absolutely.
So let's maybe transition into some of the other projects you got going on. So while we're on the subject of IVs, you also started a mobile IV business. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so Hydromed IV, I am with a couple other guys with that venture. We have like a marketing guy who's like a freaking genius. He kicks ass, which is why the company is growing so big. And then we have the other guy who is like the visionary, like he's the guy, he's like the godfather of it. And I'm just the guy that makes sure to fill in the cracks. I'm the guy that like I'm the make sure the IVs get done. You know, I do like the vitamin ordering, make sure that happens. I'll go out and do like interviews for us and get some people. So yeah, but our company has just exploded through COVID. So we started out in, we launched in May. We were going to launch in April, but COVID delayed us. And we've seen just explosive growth. I mean, our projections were roughly like 3 months ahead of our projections in our growth, which has been super awesome.
So why did you start the business? And at that point, how does one start a mobile IV business? What are the steps to doing that?
So I technically was not the person to start it. I got approached. I had thought about doing an IV business. And I actually, one of the guys I was in the calendar with, I had bumped into him and he was like, "Hey, I'm looking at doing this IV thing. What do you think? Are you interested?" And I was like, "Heck yeah, I'm interested." And then the more we started talking, I kind of became one of his right-hand men. And then it just kind of exploded from there. But to do an IV business, there is a lot to it. There's like a lot more than you would think there is, as far as licensing, insurance, you got to get a doctor and you got to have protocols and you have to have relationships with, pharmacies to get your vitamins. And there is a lot that goes into the back office of a mobile IV company, a ton of stuff. The guy that Mark, he works nonstop. Like I work a bit. He works like, I'm like, that guy's like a freaking beast. Like he's like, I call him at 10 o'clock at night and then call him at like 5 a.m. He's working nonstop.
He's a Dustin.
Oh, he's getting after it.
Good deal, brother. And so talk to us about what it was like building a business through pandemic. Cause I've seen two things and it's pretty much binary, one or the other. I've seen businesses absolutely get destroyed. And I've seen businesses have their biggest months ever throughout this pandemic. So what did you guys do that was special to thrive over the last few months, where as a lot of businesses didn't thrive over the last few months?
To be honest with you, we were available and we were the best. Like we've been the best. We provide the best service, the quickest service. And we always have somebody to you within an hour. Right. And then we follow up with handwritten notes. We check up on you. Like we're a company that really cares about the people that we're serving. So when you care about the people that you're serving, then you're going to get business, because guess what? They're going to tell their friends, and then their friends are going to tell their friends. And then the next thing you know, you're doing an IV party with 8 people because they're like, "Dang, these guys are awesome." So it's all about
what you put it. Party.
Oh man, it's where you get, all your buddies together and after you've been drinking all night and I cure you of your hangover in about 20 minutes.
That's awesome.
You can do that?
Oh yeah.
Now that I'm 32, my hangovers last 2 days now instead of one morning. So we might, if you plan on opening up operations in California, you might need to give me a call.
We're going to be expanding to California this next year. So
your first subject. So did you guys notice there was a void in the IV market in your area, and that's kind of what inspired you guys to get started?
Yeah. So the mobile IV thing is still fairly new to the space. Like most everybody this day and age knows about like an actual clinic. If you go to Vegas, you probably know that there's mobile IVs because they're all advertised all over the place. But Colorado, there's not many companies at all that are doing it and providing a high level service that's 24/7, and our pricing is competitive. And so here's the thing, is that during COVID, there's a lot of people that are scared shitless to leave their house. Well, that's cool. If you're scared, we'll come to you. And so it's been huge because people realize, oh, wait, I don't have to leave the comfort of my home and I can still get an IV, and we're 24/7, right? So that's a big deal, is being 24/7. They're available for you. We're available for you all the time. That people really dig that.
That's a huge lesson I've learned in business. It's that the customers never disappear. Just sometimes you have to evolve the access point. Like with my company, for example, we work with restaurants and we do self-service kiosks. So obviously people weren't walking into restaurants anymore to place orders. So we had to pivot fast and develop an online ordering flow to complement what we were doing in person. And, we've been able to thrive since then. So yeah, if you're running a business out there, you definitely have to stay agile to adapt to market conditions. So that's awesome. You guys are doing that. I wanted to touch upon something you said while you were explaining why your business is doing well, and kind of what we were speaking about before we started filming here. But you said caring for other people, and you expressed the importance of that. Can you just kind of riff on that for a moment, because you're dropping some heat before we started rolling the camera. So let's recreate that magic. Why is it important to serve others, and what does that lead to?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing: is that everybody wants something, right? Like I want something, you want something. Like you guys have things that you want. How can I get what I want? The best way to get what I want is to get you what you want. And the reason being is because the minute I give you what you want, you're going to want to give me what I want, right? And so it's this great cyclic environment, is that if you can serve other people, if you can just be there for other people, it's amazing the things that'll come back to you. When you start to serve, when you start to let's say you leave that waitress that's been just, busting her ass for the pandemic, and she's only making $10 tips, and she's only has 4 tables. When you give her $100 tip and you brighten her day, I can't tell you how many times I've done that. And then I've seen $100 pop up here, or, $500 pop up here. It's because money is energy, and energy is abundant. There is plenty of energy. And so you have to stop looking at things as there's this whole ideology that we're living, in scarcity. Like, that's on you, because there is so much abundance in life. And if you start to just care for other people and show abundance, you're going to get abundance back. I promise you. I guarantee it. It's amazing. It never fails. That's something that never fails, is that if you truly care about people and you truly do things for other people and not just for yourself, you're going to get the things back. It's just the way it works.
So in application, what has helped you grow the business so exponentially in the past, couple months? What are you applying into your business to go above and beyond and serve your customers to bring them back and keep them coming?
Yeah, absolutely. So the number one thing is when I come in, I'm going to find out exactly what you need, because you are going to contact me and you're going to say, hey, I want said IV treatment. And I'm going to say, cool, awesome. Why? Why do you want that? And they'll say, well, because of this. And I'll go, well, that one's not going to do you any good. Let's get you what you need. And so I talk through that process of, like, these are the things that you need. These are what's going to really help you. And this is why. And then once I'm done, there's 2 major key factors with repeat business. Number one, I follow up tomorrow and see how you feel. People are blown away when you follow up and say, hey, this is Nick. I just wanted to check in and see how you're feeling after that IV. What am I doing? I'm putting myself back in their mind. I say, hey, this is Nick with Hydromed. So I put Nick and Hydromed back in their mind. And then I tied it to a feeling. How are you feeling? They're feeling good, right? So now Hydromed, Nick, and they tie that feeling to me of like, wow, oh, this guy makes me feel good, right? And then what do I do? And then that day I write a handwritten note that says, hey, I just want you to know I really appreciate you using Hydromed. If there's anything I do for you, let me know. The next time I see you, I'll throw an extra add-on in for free for you.
That's a game changer.
Yeah. And people are, it's like clockwork. I mean, they call you back. Like, in fact, right after we get done with this, I'm going to go out and do an IV at 8:15 at night with one of my regulars. But, I hustle. That's what I do.
Is this regular just regularly hungover? And so they,
No, it's so our big business honestly is wellness.
Yeah.
Like people who are getting it for wellness, people who they get a cold, or athletes who are trying to perform at their best. That's where the money
Really?
in IVs are. It's not the hangover. Like the hangover, they're not going to call you back because they get hungover, and then they're like, it was too much money, or was this or was that. It's the ones. Now, don't get me wrong. There's a few people who they get hungover and they'll call you every week because they have a shit ton of money to dump on IVs, I guess.
So what is actually happening when you get an IV? Are you just putting like, what is the medical process?
Yeah, so you're putting vitamins directly into the bloodstream. So if you don't, so the IV, the vitamin IV like we're doing, it originates from Dr. John Myers. Dr. John Myers was a doctor that said, "Hey, I think instead of treating symptoms and masking them, we should do something that's actually going to help people get better." And so he came up with this vitamin cocktail called the Myers cocktail. And that's the basis for what we do now. That's kind of like the base bag. And now we do all these other things like biotin and L-carnitine and taurine and all this other stuff. But it all originates out of that Myers cocktail.
Wow. This whole time, I would have been a terrible paramedic. I didn't even know what an IV was. Good thing I didn't take that route. You make me want to go get one right now. So while we're on the subject of tactics, and those are very, very, now I see why your guys' business is growing the way it is. You did mention earlier that one of your tactics that you say that you're an expert at and excellent at is the morning routine and setting your day up properly. So can you walk us through your morning routine and just your thoughts on morning routines in general and why they're important?
Yeah, absolutely. So I just want you to know, like, just because this is what I say, this doesn't happen every morning. And I guarantee you the mornings that it doesn't happen are the days that my shit falls apart. So I found for me, if I don't do these things, that my day is just not set up for success, in my opinion. So for me, the first thing I do before my feet even touch the ground, when I open my eyes, is I say a few of the things that I'm grateful for at that moment, whether it be my wife, my kids, the air I'm breathing, whatever it is in that moment that I feel that I need to be grateful for. That's my gratitude is that's one of my first things, is that gratitude. Then once I roll out of bed, I like to go to the sauna. The reason I go to the sauna is that I can sweat all my toxins out. It's just a really good way for me to meditate. I do some breathing exercises. I'll alternate between listening to podcasts, music, Audible books while I'm in the sauna. And so that's that's about an hour generally in the sauna. And then from there, I will go in and do a 5-minute cold shower. Which is, you go from that real hot to that real cold, which is really good for your body. And it makes you be ever present in the moment. And then from there,
can you talk about that a little bit deeper, the cold shower? Because I've heard of many high performers who leverage the cold shower. I know Ed Milet jumps into the ocean every morning, right? So what medically is going on, because you are a medical professional? What's happening inside when that happens?
So you're dropping your core temperature is what's happening. And what the deal with the cold shower is it makes you be present, because you can't avoid the fact that you're cold as shit. And so when you are in a state like that, when you're super cold, it makes you be ever present in your moment and ever present in your mind and ever present right there.
Like
right?
Fight or flight.
Exactly. Yeah. It's making you be in your moment and really grind through it.
Okay, so it's not much deeper than that. It just makes you take attention because you're fucking cold.
Yep.
Yeah, just because you're fucking cold. You got to be in that moment.
I thought maybe the speeding up of your heart rate or the blood flow would. Okay.
When you get in the heat, so there is some stuff behind the hot to cold. The hot to cold is because of the heart rate, because it takes your, like my heart will get up to 140 when I'm sitting in the sauna. You know, when I've been sitting in the sauna for an hour and it's 124 degrees, I generally will be like 145. You go sit in a cold shower, it's going to drop quickly because your temperature drops and then your heart rate drops. So it does strengthen your heart because it is doing that real fast and then down.
Yeah, I've tried it before. Can't say I ever did it consistently because that shit is cold, and I do appreciate my hot showers. But now that you're telling me this, I think I'm gonna try a cold shower in an IV tomorrow and report back on how I feel.
I feel like $1,000,000.
Yeah, man. It's like, hey, who knows? Maybe I pop up with a beard the way you have a beard.
Maybe.
That's just 45 days, right?
Yeah.
32 years right here.
Miracle Grow. It's like a chia pet, bro. What are you putting on that thing?
Any best practices on growing a beard here?
Man, I wish I knew other than just, I don't know.
You got an IV for that? Because you got some beard nutrients in the IV.
Some biotin, hair, nail, and skin. That's what biotin's for. So yeah, we do some biotin in
there you
the
go.
IV.
That's the fix. You just got to get some biotin. Eugene, you have
biotin.
Solve my 32-year mystery. Love it. Let's kind of shift gears here. So I know you host a podcast as well. And I just following your content. First of all, I got to say, I appreciate your transparency and willing to be vulnerable. I know it's hard, especially for somebody like you who, I mean, you just look like an alpha dude to, talk about the mental challenges you're having. But I see you on social media. You seem very positive, very uplifting. You're always trying to share motivation and whatnot. You got your podcast. I haven't had a chance to listen to it yet, but I'm guessing it's an extension of the way you are on social media. So how did that come to be? Has that been like a part of your therapy, delivering that value back to others, and just kind of talk us through what's going on in your world as a motivator?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a huge part of my way to talk through things and work through my shit. Like, cause I didn't have a lot of tools. I didn't know what to do. And so when COVID started, I was like, right before COVID hit, I was 265 pounds. And I had just gotten a report back that I had early signs of arterial wall hardening from a scan I had done. And so I was like, fuck, man, like, that's not good. I'm 36 years old and I'm headed down the path of my grandfather who died. My dad had a heart attack and he had a weak heart, which is ultimately why he died from COVID. It was because of his weak heart and diabetes. It had nothing to do with the COVID. The COVID was the icing on the cake. Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously the COVID had a say in it, but it was really because his heart was so weak. So when I heard that, I was like, fuck, I got to do something with myself. And I went on the path and I did 75 hard. And when I did 75 hard, I lost a shit ton of weight. And I realized that I had so much more potential than I thought. And so I got down to like 211 pounds. And I was like 7% body fat. Right now I'm like 230. I gained some weight through this whole thing with my dad, but it's all right. Like, I'll lose it again. It's not a big deal. But when COVID hit, I was like, man, like, I can sit and do nothing and continue to go nowhere with my life, or I can start to make something of myself. I can start to tell my story. I can start to go after the things I want. And so I was like, I'm not going to use COVID as an excuse to sit down and lay down. I'm going to use it as an excuse to move forward. And once you get a taste of the opportunity that's out there, and once you get a taste of all the things that the world has to offer you, you can't go back. Like, you just can't go back the other direction. If you can, you obviously didn't get a full taste of what's available to you. And so I just realized all the things that are available to me, and as I launched the podcast, it's like, it's crazy to me. Like, before, guys that wouldn't give me the time of day, now we're like good friends. Like, not saying that, like, prime example, Zachary Babcock. I went out and saw Zach in St. Louis. I was the first one to ever go to his studio. I'm not saying that Zach wouldn't have given me the opportunity, but he had a reason to give me the opportunity to come do that. Right. And he wouldn't have had that reason had I not gone after it. And so when you start to rub elbows with people who are making it, and you see what you can do, you're like, fuck, I want that too, man. I want to have that. I want that, and you start to realize, like, anybody can have it. Anybody can have the things. If you put a little grit, a little work, some action, anybody can do it. Right. And so I'm like, fuck it, I'm going to do it. You know, I want it bad. So I'm going to start moving forward.
And you use the word grit. So was that why you decided to call it the Building Grit podcast?
Yeah. So yeah, it's just, my whole life has been around grit, right? Like it's taken a lot of fucking grit to get to where I am. And, you know, and so I started really, I'm like, my whole life is about building grit. It's about building this grittiness and this rawness. Like I'm the like one of the rawest, realest dudes you're gonna talk to. I promise you. Like I will tell you everything about me, who I am, and what I'm after. It's just who I am. I'm an open book, you know. And it takes a lot of fucking grinding through shit to get that way. So you know, my grit is gratitude, resilience, intuition, and tenacity. That's
Ooh.
that's my 4 pillars that I live by. I'm super grateful for the things that I have. I'm a resilient motherfucker. I'm not quitting. I use my intuition because either one or two things is going to happen. It's right and it's going to get me to where I need to go, or I was wrong and I'm going to learn a really good fucking lesson. And then if you want anything in life, you got to be tenacious. You got to have tenacity. You got to have a firm grip on shit. Because if you don't, it's going to break free from you and you're just not going to get what you want.
Yep. Ugh. Okay, that's gonna be our. We got a few sound bites here. I'm very excited about this.
No, that was great.
Man, where to take this next? So okay. So you started a podcast. I know there's a lot of people out there who want to start podcasts or start something, but just like never do it. And I know you kind of had this moment of reflection where you said, "Yo, I'm not gonna let the pandemic stop me from being great." And so was it the associations you started getting around that finally caused you to take action, or what was that trigger point that actually had you take action? Was it just you saying, I don't want to be, I'm tired of not being what I need to be?
You know, it was, I started to see what you could have. I started to see what other people had. And I was like, man, how are those guys getting what they want? And then I started to hang out with people
Who were
who
some of these people? Were these people that you just follow?
yeah. So I got into RTA. And then once I got into RTA, you know, I went to Tony Watley's event. And I started talking with Tony Watley and I had him on my podcast and, you know, Zach Babcock and, you know, Joey Yak and like Brad Modrich. And you start talking to some of these people who are uber successful, you know, guys that are like guys that have already made it. And then some guys that are in the process of making it. And once you start to get around those type of people, you're like, man, this is the type of person that I am. And you realize who you are and what you want. And you're like, okay, like I can do this, you know, and then you start to hear their stories and you start to hear where they came from. You know, that's what my podcast is all about. The story of how did you get where you were? And so many times it's like Zach, he was in prison. You know, and he got out of prison, was like, fuck, man, I can't go back. I got kids I want to be with. You know, I talked to a dude who had a Jeep come through his house and land on him. And that was what caused him to lose his job. And he had to go all in on his business. And then he's fucking killing it in Outdoor Solutions. You know, they're just killing it with their business. And so it's just crazy to hear all those stories and realize like, man, I can do this too. You know?
Hell yeah. It sounds like you're a very introspective person. So I definitely appreciate that about you. And I kind of want to tie it back now to what we were talking about earlier. And that's the mental health journey you're on. Now that you've been going through the therapy as of late and you've been taking this leave, I know you're still in the process, but what are some major breakthroughs you had as of late that have helped you level up your mental health game?
You know, I'm still waiting for the major breakthroughs.
What are the little breakthroughs that are
the little
compounding?
the little breakthroughs? You know, like I think the biggest, actually, I will say this is a fairly big breakthrough. Right now, like the only one that I really want to focus on or even talk about right now, because it's like the only one that I feel is like is a win at the moment, is the fact that I was able to mourn. You know, so for 18 years, I didn't cry over anybody. I didn't, you know, I might have had like a tear or whatever, but I didn't truly mourn. And so to mourn for 7 days, 6 or 7 days straight, like we're legit grown ass man with a big ass beard, like sobbing until I fell asleep fall asleep for 30 minutes and wake up and sob. So much so that my wife was like, bro, like, are you going to make it? Like, are you okay? And because she's never seen me in that state. But, it was good just to feel, because when you have not felt emotion like that at that extent, it was just good to know that I still had emotion inside of me.
Is that something that, like, prior to being a firefighter and a paramedic and being subjected to all these traumatic experiences, were you somebody who was a little bit more emotionally in tune, or did then
Absolutely
professional like beat it out of you?
Yeah, absolutely. I was definitely more of an emotionally driven individual until 18 years of this shit, and then it changes you for sure. Absolutely changes you.
Got it, man. Well, I mean, hey, for what it's worth, brother, I mean, just in talking to you over this last, what we're coming up on the hour here, I'm inspired. I mean, just being able to see somebody overcome adversity. I think whenever you can overcome adversity, you're indirectly giving others permission to, address and overcome their own demons. So, whether you're a firefighter or not, man, I think you're going to be saving a lot of lives with the example you're putting forth. So, definitely appreciate you for that. So we are coming up here on the home stretch. We generally like to wrap up by asking a few rapid fire questions that I know Dustin has ready, right? Yeah. So we'll knock out a few of those, and then we'll go ahead and ask you our final question, and then we'll go ahead and call it an episode. But again, brother, it's been an honor to meet you and hear your story. So yeah, Dustin, throwing you on the spot, man, because this is your part, bro.
So yeah, I'd just like to leave the listeners with a couple things. So let's say, what would be like just a starter? Because even Eugene over here, he's, cold showers. I wasn't consistent with it. And I think that's the number one thing that people fall out of is consistency. What would be your go-to, I would say, to get, for somebody jumping into like a morning routine or trying to better themselves? What would be how they can keep consistent and create a routine for themselves?
Yeah, for me, it's that I think the most simple way to start yourself into a routine would be to do something like gratitude before your feet touch the ground. And if you can do something like that, right, it's all about the 1 degree changes over time. And then once you do, just like Andy Frisella says, he's got the power list, right? And then once you get the power list, then you add something else. You add something else. So if you could just do one thing, is when you open your eyes, you talk about to yourself what you're grateful for. It's really going to just set you up for your day, because then you're going to be looking for the things that you're grateful for, right?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
So you can write those guys down. Yeah, that's great. And then second, so I mean, this is your first business venture with this IV thing. You've got partners that complement. So obviously you can fill the gaps where necessary, like marketing and more the business admin, and then the medical side of things. What are a couple key takeaways that you've learned in this massive growth that you could give, an aspiring entrepreneur, somebody jumping into it, that may kind of help them also cover some of those gaps?
Yeah, absolutely. Hire good people. And make sure that they are who they say they are, and that they will do what they say they will do. Because that's one of our biggest struggles right now is just getting the people who will want to work. It's crazy to me.
Oh gosh. Yeah, no, I've seen that. Before we get to our final question would be, with your podcast being centered so much around grit, what would, in your mind, the definition of, true grit personally for yourself be?
Someone who won't quit. Like someone who, no matter the circumstance, no matter what people throw at you, you don't fucking quit, no matter what.
Hell yeah.
Love it.
I actually got one more question before the final question we got here.
Let's bring
it. How was adjusting to fame once you were named Mr. November? Firefighter magazine.
Dude, I had this one gal that fucking she stalked me, and it was super uncomfortable. I was like, look, I appreciate that you think that I'm attractive, but damn, woman, like I'm married, I got kids. Oh my goodness.
She just tapes you on every single November.
Yeah, I'm like, oh my goodness, I just can't.
January, February, March, April, May, June.
All Nick. She's made Nick November month in her house.
Yeah.
Let that be a visual for you. Awesome.
People think men are creepers. Like, yeah, there's some women, dude. Like
women out there. Man. The life of a rock star. I can only imagine.
Yeah.
Awesome, brother. Well, we are here at the last question. So to bring it home, this is the Dedication to Excellence podcast. So Nick Wingo, after all you've been through, and all that you've you're continuing to grow through, from your perspective, what does it mean to live a life dedicated to excellence?
That's a solid question. Someone who's dedicated to excellence is someone who never quits, someone who knows that there's always more, right? Like if you're truly dedicated to excellence, if you're truly dedicated to being the best version of yourself, you know that every day there's something else you can do, right? Like you just, every day you wake up, you know that there's a little bit better that you can be, and that just never ends. It never goes away. You are always going to be after the next greatest, best thing, right? Like, listen to some of these guys talk about, they are just hungry for that next thing, right? They're blissfully dissatisfied with the way that they are. Like, it's like, I'm super happy about all the things I've accomplished, although I'm dissatisfied because I know I could have so much more.
Blissfully dissatisfied. I'm writing that down right now. But to your point about gratitude, it's you're blissfully dissatisfied because you still are loving where you're at and you're grateful for that, but you are aspiring.
Absolutely.
I think that's a perfect place to leave this episode. So we'll go ahead and put a pin in it right there. But before we sign off, Nick, where can people find you and stay in the loop with everything you have going on in your journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me at my Instagram is building_grit. Oh man, building_grit. Or you can find my podcast, Building Grit, one call at a time. And I'm on Apple, Spotify. And you can find me on Facebook at Nick Wingo. So.
Hell yeah, brother. So definitely give Nick a follow. Check out his content. Check out his podcast. If you like what you heard, he's going to drop even more heat there. And it sounds like you've got a pretty awesome group of people, lined up speaking on your platforms as well. So definitely looking forward to listening in. But with that, everybody, appreciate you guys for tuning into another episode of Dedication to Excellence. Appreciate all the love we've been getting. Like I said, we hit number 47 in business podcasts in the Netherlands. So that's pretty much a big deal. And we also hit 160 here in the States. So that's, again, from all you listeners, giving us love, leaving reviews, subscribing, telling your friends about it. Please keep doing that. We are on pace to hit this new and noteworthy list. If we do that, it's just going to expose us to a lot more people. So I appreciate y'all. On behalf of myself, my co-host Dustin Reyna, we are signing out. Y'all stay grateful, stay blessed, and we'll holler at you on the next episode. Peace.